Good morning. Thank you for that beautiful talk and for you holding that in your consciousness. And it's a beautiful Sunday. It's a sacred Sunday. And I know that we've had some news today, and a talk is important, but you are more important. So we are holding, the leadership is holding the community and the Raiders close to our heart, high up in the mental equivalent of wholeness and healing, and we're only seeing them and knowing that anyone around them is divinely appointed. So I just want you to know that although giving a talk on a Sunday morning is what we're going to do, because it's what Spirit brought us here to do, but I do want you to know that we honor you, we love you, and we hold you in that light. So thank you, and welcome to Happy Sacred Sunday with CSL Prescott. And I do have a joke, if that's all right with everyone. And the mom saga continues. We'll talk a little bit about that. But here's the joke. A boy was watching his father, a pastor, write a sermon. He said, "How do you know what to say?" asked the little boy. "Well," the father said, "God tells me." "Oh, well then why do you keep crossing it all out?" And this is kind of what we're moving into today. And this minister is very happy that this season of sacred, mundane, sacred, and now the profane is wrapping up. Because they are things to research and talk about, and I don't mind it, but it's kind of like the same thing over and over. And so I started to realize as I was writing the talk, I go, we talked about this last Sunday. But we'll kind of bring that to a close and wrap up and with a talk about the profane. And the title is Navigating Profanity and Embracing the Divine is Surrendering to Everyday Transcendence, which is kind of what Sandy talked about today. How do we live that life? We talked a lot about it in the previous Sundays. With mundane, it's kind of like how our minds get bored with our life and work. And then with the sacred, how we all desire to have that intimate connection. And I know I went through my phases, Muji, Sadhguru, I don't know, Spiro, like all of these different teachers. And I really thought where it was at was sitting in a cave and connecting to the higher divine, and that would answer all my problems. It didn't. Because life, as it always does, is moving and flowing and ever being. So what I did today was I took some time to put the points of the talk up here. One, maybe it'll help me slow down a little bit. And because I get excited. Can y'all tell that I get excited when I do a talk? But also I wanted you to be able to follow along as I kind of talk about them. So what I really wanted you to know in the opening is, as we navigate the dance between the imperfections and the divine moments in our everyday life, we embrace the beauty of the dual nature of life. In surrendering to the reality of our existence, we embark on a sacred journey of self-discovery, finding profound connections within the divine and the simplicity of each moment. So what we know is life happens and things happen, and the attitude, the mental attitude that we bring to those things happening determines our reality. So, being, the profane was I looked it up, I contemplated it, I pondered it, and I didn't really want to talk about it, to be honest with you. Probably because it hit a little bit home. But what I really want to talk about it right now is the profane as a reflection of our human frailty. We have these bodies, we know we all get here the same way and we're all leaving the same way. But what happens in between is really dependent on what you have experienced in your life. How you see the world and the mental attitude you bring to it is dependent on who touched your life. Your parents, your teachers, your friends, your neighbors. And some of us have had relatively easy journeys, and we sit and stay in a lot of bliss. And some of us have had very difficult journeys as our mind describes them and as we experience them. We know that life can be difficult. We know that some things are much more painful And we know that those things can sometimes turn us into, depending on the experience, it can really give us a negative mental attitude towards life. And so what happens is, one day we wake up and we're like, man, this is just, I'm just done. I just want off the hamster wheel. I want off the race. I want to really begin to know myself. But it doesn't always happen like I'm describing it. Usually it arises as a feeling of discontent, or maybe our objective reality isn't quite going the way we want it to go. Maybe we've lost a job. Maybe we've lost a loved one. Maybe we've lost our house, money, finances, which is fine, because these are the things that Spirit uses to turn us to our onward journey home. So in our daily lives, we often encounter the profane, elements that are vulgar, crude, or disrespectful. The facets of existence mirrors the inherent flaws and imperfections within our human nature. Profanity can manifest itself in our language, in our actions, our thoughts, and they serve as a reminder of our earthly limitations and the struggles we face in navigating the complexity of lives, in our lives, the complexities of life. In our daily lives, we encounter these imperfections. I mean, I know I do. I'm a bit of a perfectionist in an imperfect world, which makes the journey a little bit even more difficult, right? So I, because of the traumas that I experience, the way my mind works, and what I was really utilized for in the banking world was to go in, turn it around, get it running, and get out. But that became a very in tune thing for me because of my traumas. When I would walk into a room, I needed to know where I was safe. And so I began to be able very quickly over a period of time to get to know you and be who you needed me to be. And I didn't recognize this until I was much older, that this is a defense mechanism, that even that too needs to fall away. But when you're living that, you don't really know that is your perspective about life until someone, a mental equivalent to your thought process, shows up to help you see it. And I know for me, that created a lot of success, but also a lot of difficulty. So for me, I needed to begin to see God in my everyday life, recognizing the divine within. And that's what our philosophy is so amazing at. That's how you find yourself here. Maybe a friend drug you, and we kind of make the joke, right? Does someone bring you? Does someone drag you? But however you got here, you said yes to Spirit, and Spirit used your life to bring you through the door so that you could start to look at the things that connect you to the difficulties of your life. My teacher, Reverend Sherrill, one of my mentors, very profound science of mind teacher, and I said, but how do I start to learn what my beliefs are? How do I start to see the negative aspects? Because for me, what brought me to science of mind was I thought I was broken. I thought I needed to be fixed. I thought that everybody else was right about me and that I was problematic, and that if I could just figure out how not to be problematic, that I would be loved. It was very painful. But what I soon found out was that's not true. It's not true. It's a lie that our mind tells us, but Spirit used it to my advantage because it brought me through the doors for healing, and it brought you through the doors. And so what I'm saying is there's no brokenness. There's only attachment to what we have, what we want, what we desire. And those are all fine. Desiring things is part of human nature. But what I read this recently, that attachment is merely what you are putting your attention on and where it stays. And I thought to myself, well, we give all of our attention to our objective world. We give our attention to the car that we want and the parking lot that we want and the house that we want. And what we're talking about here is giving attention to the self, beyond the ideas, beyond the beliefs, direct experience of the self, the highest truth within you will reveal itself. When you're speaking from that place, you pause more. Your cadence changes. You are relatable. So we start to let the profane drop. We start to notice the profane in our everyday life, and it kind of starts to drive us a little bit crazy because we start to question ourselves a lot. And those questionings are supposed to drive us back in to sit in meditation, which, again, meditation is a fine tool. The teachings that we offer here, fine tools, but they are ultimately there to give you a way to find your way back home, much like the prodigal son. The prodigal son who wanted to go out into the world. He wanted to go disco dancing and, right? And he wanted a girlfriend, he wanted a wife, he wanted to gamble, he wanted to have fun, he wanted to have a drink. And the father said, fine, go and experience that. And at the end, what he realized was, it is an ever-ending hamster wheel. There's always a desire, there's always a loss, there's always an attachment, and because the objective world is created from our own each of our own mental equivalents, we are creating our own reality. That's why we all see the world differently. But when we get back connected to the higher self and we see the world, we start to understand from a higher level that God is in everyday life. So the flip side says that every moment presents us with an opportunity to recognize the divine in the ordinary. God is not confined to the sacred spaces of worship. Rather, the divine is interwoven into the fabrics of our daily existence. By embracing this perspective, we can find spiritual significance in the seemingly mundane aspects of our life, fostering a deeper connection to the divine in our day-to-day experience. I talked a little bit about going to work and wanting to do my work as God did it, and this is what the personality does, but you can start to see the change in tide in you when compassion wells up within you, then you immediately have it for the other. But what you have for yourself, you will often see in the reflection of your everyday life. And if you don't like what you see, guess what? You get to change it. You created what you have now, and that's how powerful you are. That's what love does. The essence and the energy of your true self, your highest self, is what we call love. We've come up with a name that, ineffable. Sabrina and I were talking about ineffable, and I'm like, oh, can you remind me of that definition? And this is really what we're talking about here, the thing we cannot name, although we love our words, right? I wouldn't have a job here if we didn't use words. So we love our words. We love the connection. We know it when we feel it. Have you ever had that divine sacred moment where the hairs on your arm stood up and you're like, ooh, what was that? It feels like an electricity running through you. It was an encounter with the divine, which is yourself. And it is, have you ever tried to explain that to someone else? It's kind of crazy, right? You're so, I had these moments and I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to tell everybody. And it runs through my mind, and in my mind it sounds so great. Like I have this whole talk planned out. I'm gonna sit with my friend and as soon as I start trying to talk about it, there's not a word that I can find that describes the equivalence of a connection to yourself where you absolutely know everything is okay. Because you know what happens is we have this moment and we connect to it and we try to explain it. And as soon as we try to explain it, it's like sharing your pearls with swine. You're trying to explain it so they can understand it. And maybe their consciousness isn't ready for it yet. So they have lots of questions. And then those questions make you go, well, did I really have that experience? Then logic comes in. Logic enters into the conversation, and then the mind enters into the conversation, and then it's distorted, and we're back to the profane where we're like really not sure. But when we have these moments, I distinctly remember Muji saying, when you have the moment, talk to no one. Talk and share with no one. Marinate in it. Allow it to take you. Allow it to disassemble your personality. Allow it to remove what needs to be removed so that you can emerge in the singularity from a world of duality. And, I didn't take that advice. No. I went to church and I would try to explain to everybody, do you know who Muji is? Ooh, I had this epiphany. I was watching him and I think, and they would just look at me like, you watch Muji? Who's Muji? And I'm like, no, that's not the point. The point is the experience that I had. And I learned after a couple times, because I'm hard-headed, to go into solitude and quietude, and that I didn't need the approval of the outside world that I was creating. I needed to get in contact with that which is within myself for the conditions and the concepts and the ideas that I had collected over my lifetime that defined who I was, and then in turn helps me define who other people are. I started to realize I wanted that to fall away. And something amazing happens. We get a contrasting perspective in everyday life when that happens. The contrast between the profane and the divine serves as a dynamic interplay, highlighting the dual nature of human experience. While profanity reflects our earthly struggles, everyday divinity offers a pathway to transcend these struggles and connect with our higher self. It is through conscious choice to surrender to the realities of life that we can navigate the dichotomy. So once we realize what we give our attention to, which takes some self-awareness and introspection, that's what our classes help you with. That's what our practitioners help you with. They give you the ability to start to look at yourself without shame, without blame, without guilt. Although I will tell you it does arise because most of us are raised with that. And the other thing it gives you, as we talked a little bit about this, is that you start to see who you are. If you have a negative connotation about yourself, who you are is not your fault. It's just who you became by what you saw, what you did, what people told you. And most of us, as I learned this from my little man Luke running around, I am learning boundaries. I wasn't raised with any. So, here's my thing. Luke, get off the couch. Luke, get off the couch. Luke, get off the couch. And I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Let's go to YouTube. How do you make your toddler get off the couch? And what I discovered was boundaries require nothing of you. Little Luke, I am going to take you off the couch. And then when I take you off the couch, I will turn the TV on for you, which is totally different than we walk around trying to get everyone to do everything that we need to make us happy, right? And when they don't do it, we get kind of profane. We get a little irked, right? We go through the drive-through and we have these young people running the drive-throughs, which I have begun to see have a deeper appreciation. Tolerance. Have a better tolerance for when I ask for unsweetened tea and I get to there and I have a sweetened tea, and then the profane part of myself goes, come on, do you know the difference between unsweetened and sweetened, right? And so you see these kids trying to make their way, and I remember when I worked at McDonald's, I didn't know how to count money. I was so afraid. It was really busy part of Avondale, and I didn't really want to work. I was so scared, and the guy just shoved me at the cash register, and I'm like, and this is the days where you actually had cash registers, you didn't get to order on a kiosk, and I was trying to count money, and the customers were actually helping me count money because I didn't know how. It's funny that I ended up in banking. Yeah. The other day we were trying to figure out a math equation, and my husband was like, you were in banking. I had a calculator. I had a computer. It was programmed to make me look smart. But I remember just feeling so defeated, and this manager really wasn't nice, so it put in my mind that managers aren't nice. And so then I carried this mental equivalent about managers, right? And guess what I got everywhere I went? A manager that supported my idea of myself that I didn't get along with managers, that I had authority issues. So, once, and it took me a long time to see that, okay, in many jobs, but once I started to see very much later down the road, Let me pause for a moment. Down the road, I began to see that I could change the relationship with them by changing the idea I have of them in my mind. I could see them the way I want them to be because they are characters in my play. I'm creating them. And guess what? They're either going to leave or they're going to adjust to the mental equivalent. And either way, I can release them because it's not their fault. I invited them in. Unconsciously or consciously, they are there to support me. And sometimes those characters, we'd like to just give them a good kick to the moon, right? But with this, one day, I started at USA like 9 years ago, and the first managers I had adopted to my old mental equivalent. And then as I studied with my teacher, he didn't say, change your mental equivalent. He would ask me questions like, why do you need their approval? Well, what do you mean, why do I need their approval? Like, because I want to know I'm doing a good job. He's like, can't you tell yourself that? So then I started, right? He would give me these ideas to mull and contemplate for a week. And then I would go to work and I would apply them and something would change. And so it wasn't like you can head on the ego. Like you just can't go to the ego and give it these ideas because it'll distort it. It'll come up with a new way that wasn't even talked about. Have you ever talked to someone and they ever have a problem and you've shared these deep insights and you see them next time and they're like, but you said, and you're like, did I say that? Like, I didn't say that. Because what the mind does is it distorts things. So going back to McDonald's, the manager was like, you can't count money. I'm like, no kidding. Cannot count money. So he put me on the ketchup machine. Now, this is a big, giant metal funnel, and you have these big things of ketchup, and you have to dump the bag in there. And that's when McDonald's wore those beautiful brown polyester with the yellow. And so I'm picking this bag up at 16, and I'm dropping it in there, and the bag catches the corner. And we had a ketchup explosion. And I was covered with ketchup. And I'm like, I'm covered with ketchup. I want to go home and change. And he was like, no, you can't go home. And I'm like, well, I'm like, yes, I can. I'm not in jail. I'm at McDonald's. But I was so afraid of him. And I stayed that whole day working with ketchup stuck to me in brown polyester. And these little moments of my life as I was reflecting on them on the drive up here once made me cry, now makes me laugh. Because it formulated who I am. It created this beautiful personality called Tracey, and it also helped me to navigate life. And I realized that part of navigating life is the positive and the negative. It is the grumpy and the joy. It is the bliss and the sorrow, and that none of them give us permission to beat ourselves up. None of them give us permission to go out and give anyone else a hard time. If anything, when we become self-aware, compassion grows and we lose answers for people, right? We're not the answer for anybody. I hate to break it to you. You're not the answer for anybody, no matter how much you think you got it. You are not. But when you are in your higher self, a divine and tuned inspiration might arise, and it is always heard when it comes from that space and not the space of ego. And we have made an enemy out of our ego, but the ego serves a fine purpose. It serves a beautiful purpose to navigate through life, to go to parties and communities and get together and have fun. It's the refinement of the ego that we're working on. And with that refinement comes a falling away and a merging of the two. And what blossoms is the lilies that we talked about last week. That the lilies, they be, right? And my intellectual mind, like I said, was like, but I'm not a lily, I have a mouth. But what happens is when we be, this runs a lot less. When we be, this starts to happen more. We start to hear. When we be, the heart opens and the answers that are already in the universe emerge. And this is the beauty that life has for both the struggles and the moments of transcendence. The contrast between the challenges and the divine lights of the dual nature in our experiences. By consciously accepting and navigating life's realities, we find a balance that allows our spiritual growth. While appreciating the imperfect beauty of our human existence, the daily journey becomes a sacred path in and of its own. Self-discovery connects us with the divine. It helps us to heal or reveal the pains that were inflicted upon us. And as we feel those, our body releases them, and we feel that divine letdown, and we feel that we can look at our past and not live by it, but just let it go. And that because what's happening now is never something that happened to you. Because if you notice thoughts, they're always about a past. We talked about this, right? That thoughts arise, they come, they go. But what we start to notice is every time we get caught in a movie, I was sitting, my husband's favorite thing that I do, on my phone, and I'm trolling through spiritual videos, because that's where I get all my spiritual advice, from Instagram. And Luke was going, Nana, 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 Nana. And so my husband waited for him to say it about 4 times, and he goes, Tracey. And I go, oh, what? And he goes, 4 times Luke said Nana. And what was happening was I was scrolling, but my attention was on the scrolling, on the information. But as I was reading the information, an old story would kick in. And then immediately I'm with that person in that time, in that place, trying to have a different conversation about the same thing that happened 20 years ago. Right? And there's some truth to revisiting those in a method meditation where you want to heal the past. But when you get lost in thought, it takes you out of the moment. And when I came out of the moment, I realized I was having a conversation with my daughter who wasn't even present about something that I was watching. And it totally took me out of the beingness of the moment. And this is what children remind us of. They're never lost. This is why the great teacher Jesus said, be like children, because they're always being. They don't really know what's going on. They don't, when they're having their fit, it's just because they don't feel right. They're dysregulated. Luke wanted to watch motorcycles. And I'm like, yeah, I got him. And he's flinging himself around. And I'm like, okay, show me how you really feel. And this, and what we gather as adults is this refinement. And we stuff it down, and it makes our bodies ill. And I kind of don't suggest you acting like a 2-year-old as an adult, but I do suggest kind of paying attention to what children do, because really what they want to do is feel safe. They want consistency. They want direction. And that's what we want too. When we connect to our higher selves, we don't get it from anybody else. You get it from yourself. And it feels loving, and it feels good, and I invite you in to that experience. So in closing, in the symphony of our existence, the profane and the divine dance together, each a note contributing to the melody of our lives. By acknowledging the imperfection within ourselves and the world, we embrace the divine in the ordinary, and we surrender to the intricate realities we face. We unlock the door to our higher self. In this transformative journey, we discover that our everyday awakening is not merely a routine, but a sacred opportunity to live authentically. It harmonizes our earthly experience, and in divine and beautiful tapestry of our existence, of our lives, it unfolds, and we begin to have a deep appreciation for everything, the bliss that you feel from this courage to come to a place like this and take the classes and discover yourself and to see where it takes you. I can promise you from my own direct experience, it just feels amazing. It is just truly amazing, and I want this for everyone, but I had to find it for myself. So in closing, can you put the last slide up? Nina, did you disappear on me? The last slide? Oh, there we go. This is our affirmation that I really want to share with you, that you could take a picture of it, you can, but I would like to read it, and yes, embrace. Okay, I want to make sure I have the same one here because I change things a lot. I embrace the imperfect beauty of my journey. Can you say that with me? I embrace the imperfect beauty of my journey. Recognizing And growth. And amen. So it is, right? This is a beautiful affirmation. And I've shortened it to, with the help of my teacher, I have shortened this to, if you want to get in contact with yourself, the ineffable, the unknown, the beingness, it's just I. Just meditate on I. It is the thing that has nothing attached to it. Just sit with I. And the I amness is your consciousness. It is ever expanding. It is ever knowing. It is ever loving. And it will take you the full ride. And it will help you navigate. It will fill you with bliss. It will show you the way because it is the way. Namaskaram.